God, we thank you, Father, for the support. Look upon the father, the mother, the sister, the brother, his family.
I'll never get over this. I'll never get over somebody doing this to my niece.
I can't stop smiling, man. Hey, I can't stop smiling, man.
What would make a man take the life of his best friend? All because of a single like on social media? Was it jealousy, hidden resentment, or the dark side of friendship that no one saw coming? This is the heartbreaking story of Tazaria Monty Butler, known to many as Lil Jabbo, a rising rapper whose dreams, talent, and life were all cut short by the very person he trusted most. Before we dive in, welcome to Crime Bitz. If you love deep, real-life crime stories that reveal the human emotions behind every tragedy, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. It really helps us tell more stories that matter. Now, let's get into the case. The story begins in Lumberton, North Carolina, a small city in Robeson County with just over 19,000 residents. It's the kind of town where everyone knows everyone and news spreads fast. But behind its quiet streets lies a place haunted by one of the highest violent crime rates in the state. In Lumberton, the odds of falling victim to violent crime are roughly 1 in 50. Murders, robberies, and shootings have become all too common. And for one young rapper, the city that raised him would also be the city that claimed him. Tazaria Monty Butler was born on January 9, 2003. Friends and family called him Jabbo, a name that would soon become known far beyond the borders of his small town. From a young age, Jabbo was different. His energy was electric. He was the kid who could make a whole crowd laugh, the one who lifted everyone's spirits when things got hard. He was raised by his single mother, a strong woman who worked tirelessly to keep her son on the right path. She taught him that success would only come through discipline, focus, and faith. Mind over matter, she always said. A phrase Jabbo carried with him everywhere. At school, he was a gifted athlete. He played football and basketball at Lumberton High School, where he was known for his speed and determination. But during his junior year, tragedy struck. A devastating ACL tear sidelined him, shattering his dream of going pro. For most young athletes, that kind of injury ends everything. But for Jabbo, it became a turning point. When he couldn't run on the field, he turned to music, pouring his pain, his faith, and his ambition into every lyric. And he was good. Really good. By 18, he had already recorded songs with big names like Boozy and Big 30, earning thousands of views on YouTube and Spotify. His track Soldier Mentality became a local anthem, a statement of survival and strength. He performed in New York's Times Square, appeared on 50 Cent's podcast This Is 50, and was on the verge of something great. But even as his fame grew, Jabbo never forgot his roots. He stayed close to his family, especially his mom and his 2 young children. At just 20, he was already a father of 2, with another baby on the way. Despite his busy schedule, he always made time for his kids. Those who knew him say he wanted to give them everything he never had. Still, fame can be a double-edged sword, especially in small towns where success breeds envy. Some people loved seeing him rise. Others watched with jealousy. And among those watching, one of them was right beside him, his closest friend, Chamberlain Oxendine. Chamberlain was more than just a friend. He was like an older brother to Jabbo. The two were inseparable, traveling together, laughing together, hustling together. Chamberlain even served as his security during shows and public appearances. They spent nearly every day side by side dreaming about the future. To everyone, they were brothers. To Jabbo's mom, Chamberlain was family. But what no one knew was that beneath the surface of their friendship, jealousy had begun to fester, slowly, quietly, and fatally. It would all come to light on June 27, 2023, the day Lumberton lost one of its brightest young stars. That evening, Jabbo was at an apartment on Beam Road in Lumberton, hanging out with Chamberlain and Chamberlain's 2 brothers. It was supposed to be a regular evening between friends. But a small act, something as harmless as tapping a heart on a photo, would turn into the reason one man picked up a gun against another. Reports say that while scrolling through social media, Chamberlain noticed that Jabbo had liked a photo of Chamberlain's wife. And that, according to those close to the case, is when everything changed. When the clock ticked past 10 p.m. on June 27, 2023, The quiet neighborhood of Beam Road was just like any other summer night in Lumberton. Calm, humid, and filled with the sound of crickets echoing from the trees. Inside one of the apartments, laughter could be heard. That was where Tazari Lil Jabbo Butler sat with Chamberlain Oxendine and Chamberlain's brothers. The men were talking about music, plans, and money. But according to those close to the investigation, the atmosphere shifted the moment Chamberlain brought up his wife's name. He asked Jabbo, almost casually at first, why he had liked one of her pictures on Facebook. Jabbo, known for his friendly and open personality, brushed it off with a smile and said, "Man, it's just a like. Ain't nothing to it." But Chamberlain wasn't smiling. To him, it wasn't just a like. It was disrespect. It was a sign. Or at least, that's what his mind told him. Witnesses said that the tension escalated quickly. Words were exchanged. Voices grew louder. One of Chamberlain's brothers tried to step in and calm things down, but it was too late. In a flash of rage, Chamberlain pulled out a gun. The same gun he was supposed to use to protect his best friend, now pointed directly at him. The argument turned deadly in seconds. Neighbors later reported hearing several gunshots echo through the complex. Some thought it was fireworks, until they heard screaming. When police and paramedics arrived, Tazari Butler was lying in the hallway of the apartment, bleeding heavily from multiple gunshot wounds. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead at just 20 years old. The news hit Lumberton like a thunderclap. People refused to believe it. The local community flooded social media with heartbreak and disbelief. Fans posted clips of Jabbo performing, smiling, talking about his dreams. Friends cried live on Facebook saying, "He was just here yesterday. How could this happen?" And what made it even harder to process is that the man accused of killing him wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a rival. It wasn't a jealous fan. It was his brother in every sense of the word, Chamberlain Oxendine. Police quickly began investigating. The evidence, witnesses, and scene made it clear. This wasn't a random act. It was personal. The motive, according to reports, stemmed from jealousy and possessiveness over a social media post. Chamberlain allegedly became enraged that Jabbo had liked a photo of his wife. To him, that like meant disrespect, maybe even betrayal. It's tragic how something so small, a click of a button, could set off such destruction. When detectives located Chamberlain, they found him trying to leave the area. He was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and possession of a firearm by a felon. The Robeson County Sheriff's Office confirmed his arrest and began building their case. Meanwhile, the community mourned. At the Lumberton High School football field, hundreds gathered to release balloons in Jabbo's memory. His mother stood at the center, holding a white balloon close to her chest, her tears falling as she whispered a prayer. Friends and fans remembered his smile, his laughter, his generosity. They spoke about how Jabbo had been planning to move his family to Atlanta to expand his music career. He had just filmed a new music video. He was preparing to go on tour. Everything was lining up for him, until one friend's jealousy took it all away. What makes this story even more haunting is how close Jabbo and Chamberlain had been. They weren't just friends. They were practically family. Jabbo trusted him enough to have him by his side at every show. He trusted him to guard his life, his kids, his dreams. And that's what makes this betrayal so heavy. When people heard that the man who pulled the trigger was someone Jabbo loved like a brother, it broke them. One friend wrote on social media, "That's what hurts the most. Not that he's gone, but who took him?" As the investigation unfolded, more details began to emerge. Chamberlain had reportedly been dealing with personal issues and insecurity in his marriage. Friends said he had become more controlling and paranoid in recent months. He often accused others of disrespecting him, even when there was no real evidence. And in the end, his insecurity turned deadly. Police later confirmed that Chamberlain confessed during questioning, admitting that he shot Jabbo in a moment of rage after confronting him. He didn't run far, he didn't hide for long, and when officers took him into custody, he reportedly told them, "I didn't mean for it to go that far." But it had gone too far, much too far. When word of Chamberlain Oxendine's arrest spread through Lumberton, the community was still struggling to make sense of what had just happened. For many, it felt like a nightmare that wouldn't end. A bright young man, full of life, ambition, and love, was gone, and the man responsible was someone he trusted most. Within hours of his arrest, Chamberlain was booked into the Robeson County Detention Center without bond. The charge? First-degree murder, along with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. As investigators pieced together the timeline of events, a clear picture began to emerge. Witness statements, phone data, and evidence from the scene pointed to one conclusion: the confrontation had been fueled by jealousy and rage. Prosecutors described it as a moment of boiling insecurity. They said that Chamberlain's anger had been building for days before the shooting. He'd seen the like from Jabbo on his wife's post and reportedly confronted her about it. She dismissed it, saying it was innocent, just a friendly gesture. But Chamberlain didn't let it go. He carried that anger with him. So when he found himself sitting across from Jabbo that night, it all exploded. It was premeditated in emotion, if not in action. That was enough for a first-degree charge. As the court documents became public, one heartbreaking detail stood out. Jabbo had tried to defuse the argument before he was shot. According to a witness statement, Jabbo's last words were, "Bro, I'd never do you wrong. You know me better than that." Those words would haunt everyone who heard them. In the days following his death, Jabbo's mother took to Facebook to share her grief with the world. She wrote, "My baby didn't deserve this. He had so much love to give, so much more to do. I don't understand how someone who called him brother could take him from me." Her post quickly spread, gathering thousands of shares and comments from fans, artists, and even people who'd never met Jabbo but felt connected to his story. His 2 children, both too young to understand what had happened, became the center of a community's compassion. Friends organized fundraisers to support them, while fellow artists vowed to keep Jabbo's name alive through music. At his funeral, hundreds packed into the church wearing white shirts that read, "Long Live Jabbo." His casket, decorated with photos and lyrics from his songs, was a reminder of the light he brought to those around him. The service was emotional. Tears mixed with prayers, and the sound of his music filled the room. His mother spoke softly. He believed in love, he believed in loyalty, and he believed that one day he'd make it big, not just for himself, but for his kids. That dream didn't die. It's just beginning. As the case moved forward, Chamberlain's defense attorneys claimed that the shooting was an accident, that it happened during an argument that got out of hand. But prosecutors pushed back, calling it an act of deliberate violence fueled by jealousy. Court hearings began in late 2023, with new details emerging about Chamberlain's past. It was revealed that he had a criminal history, including prior charges for possession of firearms and domestic disputes. This history painted a darker picture of who Chamberlain really was. Friends who once described him as protective started to admit they'd seen warning signs. Some recalled how he often argued with people who even joked around with his wife. One friend told investigators he didn't like when other men even looked her way. The state used that testimony to show a pattern: a man obsessed with control, unable to manage his emotions, and quick to anger. The court set a trial date for 2025, but as of the latest updates, proceedings were still pending. Chamberlain remained behind bars, awaiting judgment. If convicted, he faces life in prison without parole. When you look at the story of Tazari Lil Jabbo Butler, you can't help but feel the weight of it all. The pain, the confusion, and the haunting question that lingers long after the headlines fade. How could something so small turn into something so deadly? A like on a photo, a single tap of the finger. That's all it took to trigger a chain of events that ended a promising life and shattered 2 families. But this wasn't just about a button on a screen. It was about ego. It was about possession. It was about the kind of insecurity that festers when love turns into ownership and friendship turns into competition. When investigators sat with Chamberlain Oxendine, he didn't act like the hardened criminal people expected. He looked hollow, defeated. His face was blank, his voice quiet. According to officers present, he said only 3 words when asked why he did it: "I lost control." Those words echo a truth that runs deeper than this case. Because every day, somewhere, someone lets pride take over reason. And once it does, there's no coming back. In the months that followed, the ripple effects of that night spread far beyond Lumberton. Friends who once hung out together stopped trusting each other. Artists began talking more openly about jealousy and envy in small towns, about how fast love can turn to hate when success enters the picture. Even on social media, fans debated the meaning behind the tragedy. Some said it was fate. Others said it was proof that not everyone who smiles at you wants to see you win. And maybe that's the hardest truth of all. Sometimes your biggest threat isn't outside your circle, it's inside it. When you peel away the headlines, this isn't just a story about murder. It's a story about what happens when emotion overpowers reason, when friendship meets betrayal, and when the hunger for respect destroys everything good. Jabo believed in loyalty. He believed that brotherhood meant protection, not competition. And maybe that's what makes this story so tragic, because he died believing in someone who didn't believe the same. If there's one thing this story should remind us all, it's that emotions, when left unchecked, can turn into weapons. Words can turn to wounds, and a single second of rage can erase years of love. For the people of Lumberton, and the countless fans who still listen to his music, Jabo represents what could have been. He was supposed to make it. He was supposed to put his city on the map. He was supposed to watch his kids grow up and tell his story on bigger stages. But now, that story lives through us. In one of his songs, Jabo rapped, "They ain't never see my struggle, they just see me smile." And maybe that's how he should be remembered. Smiling through pain, pushing through odds, believing in a future brighter than his past. His life was short, but his legacy stretches beyond his years. So I urge you, as you finish this story, take a moment to think about the people in your circle, the ones you call brother, the ones you say you love. Because loyalty doesn't mean keeping people close, it means keeping your heart clean. And if you ever find yourself on the edge of anger, think of this story. Think of how 1 second changed everything. Thank you for watching Crime Bitz. If you were moved by this story, please take a moment to subscribe and share it. Not just to grow the channel, but to spread the message that no argument, no jealousy, no like on social media is ever worth a life. Because when the gun goes off, it doesn't just take one person, it takes pieces of everyone who loved them. This has been the story of Tazari Lil Jabo Butler, a young star who believed in loyalty, lost his life to betrayal, and left a legacy the world won't forget. Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next episode of Crime Bitz, where every story reminds us that behind every crime, there's a human heart that stopped beating too soon.